What is going on, everyone, and welcome to another special video. So today I want to talk about 5 things I wish I knew. Well, quite honestly, there's a lot of things I wish I knew when I started BDO, but I think a lot has changed over the 7 years that I've been playing, and I think these are some of the more, I guess, relevant tips that are still kind of in the game, more or less, and things that I could help you guys with, whether you're like a new player returning or just trying out the game from another MMO. I think these are going to be pretty interesting tips. I picked out 5 of them that I think are going to be helpful for you guys. So in no particular order, number 1, if you are a new player, you know how when you first start out grinding and you're going to new areas and you'll see like a name over the enemy, right? So it's like purple, red, or like white or something like that. That tells you the difficulty of the enemy. Well, not really difficulty, but like it'll say purple if you are a little under leveled or you don't have enough stats or accuracy. So going to spots like that, where the name is like darker, usually means that you're a little bit less geared. You can still do it, but there's an accuracy and XP penalty for being there a little bit, because technically, yes, you can do it, and I've tested it before, but just know that those mean it's like a little bit harder on the difficulty side, and the way to fix it is just by leveling up more, getting better gear. And so when I first started, I tried to go to the spots that I thought were like at level, and sometimes maybe a little bit higher, because I was like, oh, okay, so my gear is decent. What I would recommend to new players is looking at the map, right? I know this is a lot of stuff to look at. If you are playing this for the first time and you see like this entire map with like all these little icons and stuff, you're like, what does this mean? So you could just filter out like different things if you want to only see nodes or territories and everything. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I'm going to be honest, I don't actually use most of them, and this is coming from a person who's been playing this game for a long time. A lot of this stuff is mostly only relevant for various life skills, like farming, if you want to put your things in certain areas. And then like territories show you, like, I'm going to be honest, I think this has been broken for like 7 years, to be honest, but I've just never really used it. But this is important just for the people who are getting into PvP and everything. So yeah, as I was mentioning before, going to certain level spots that are appropriate for you will probably help you a little bit more than going to somewhere higher end. So back in the day, they didn't have like all these icons on the map. Well, they had some of it, but they didn't have like the levels and everything. So it tells you your first 50 or 60 levels, 50 to 55 is roughly where I think that takes you out of the beginner zones. We kind of just have to figure it out. But nowadays, what I would recommend if you are starting a new character, just playing solo, not getting boosted by your friends to like max like level 60, 61, is, let's say you start at level 1, you generally start at Western Guard Camp, right? Then eventually you do the quest line, and then that, honestly, questing is pretty good. But if it's like your second or third character, I would start with like Castle Ruins until mid-20s, and then you could go to Bloody Monastery until low 30s, and then, or you can even stay, depending on the events, if there's like a XP buff event or something, you could stay there until upper 30s. And then after that, it kind of depends on how you feel. Like, if you feel like you are not strong enough, this is one of the lower end areas from the 30s to I can technically stay here until like low 40s, even though it says 34 to 37. If you're stacking buffs, this level is more of a suggestion, and you can stay there. So if you feel like you know what you're doing, you understand your class by this point, what I would recommend doing is going around here to the Marnie's lab. Now, I actually don't really like this spot because like the rotation is going like in a very like uphill, and it's kind of a maze, but the XP is pretty solid. Luckily for you, you're not going to have to be there for more than like an hour. You'll be good. hour at very most. And then after that, you stay here until like mid 40s or upper 40s. And then once you feel like you're good enough, you could go to this Catfishman camp and stay there until 51. Now I think this is actually pretty accurate. So if you're going in the upper 40s, the enemies are going to be like purple, right? That means most of your attacks are probably going to miss. And as long as you can hit them and kill them eventually, the XP is good enough to the point where you can stay there. So you are getting an accuracy penalty, which is why you're missing a lot. And then the XP is slightly a little bit lower, I believe. But overall, up until 51, you could be here. And after 51, it's kind of like it opens up a lot of doors. You can grind Soldier's Grave, Polys, and just a lot of other areas. Try different things out. Get to 56, do your Awakening. That's when the game begins. And find a class that you enjoy. So, anyway, that was a long explanation. Number 2. BDO is a sandbox game. That means it's not a race. It's just play at your own pace and try not to compare yourself to others. So I understand there's a lot of competitiveness in this game especially, but usually coming from your traditional MMOs where you just get max level on the first like few weeks or something, and then you do that high-end raids, dungeons, and everything, this game works a little bit differently in terms of your goal in this game is probably to get the best gear for what you want to do, whether that's PvP, PvE, life skilling. Basically, you just want to like do whatever you want, achieve your goals. There's no end game. Like there is, but there isn't. There's no highest raid or anything. There's just higher end grind spots. So one thing I would recommend to you guys is just play at your own pace. Competitiveness is good, but comparing yourself to others makes you burnt out, and it becomes less fun when you start doing that. Because I remember when I first started, I played with a friend and our goals were, hey, let's see who could get the most gear by this time, right? And then suddenly, once you guys are at a certain point, it's all about like who can grind the most, get the most silver, and either buy your gear or make it yourself. And then with the amount of RNG in this game, all it takes is one person to get like a little bit lucky, and suddenly you're ahead by like a few weeks. And over time, I guess through playing this game, it's a lot easier nowadays than it is or was before to catch up. So like seasonals and everything, that's an addition to this game that I think is actually very good to help newer players into the game. But when you're comparing yourself, like let's say you've been playing for your first year and then you're comparing to someone who's been playing for 7 years, like you see the gear gap and you're just like, I want to do that. Trust me, you're going to have to work like pretty hard for that. Not as hard as, I don't know, it used to be, but it's still like a time investment. So play at your own pace, just have fun, set goals for yourself, and you'll be good. Number 3, setting up workers and nodes early. So this is one thing that I actually was confused about when I first started the game. Workers and nodes. And why are they important? They allow you to put like workers and stuff on various nodes to get various passive materials. So basically, as long as your game is on and you feed your workers every now and then, they will basically, like, you feed them and then they bring back materials from all the nodes that you have connected, and basically that's just free money by having your game on. So let me show you or explain how it works a little bit. So this number right here is your contribution points, right? You get these by doing various life skills, turning into byproducts to an NPC, and they give you XP for contribution, or just by questing and playing the game in general. The number will go up the more you play the game. So how does it work? You see all these things right here, like you see the line and then like a node, right? So let's take these for example. These things are nodes, and by default, most of the towns are already pre-connected or like set up by default. And to invest in a node, you click something and then it'll be like, here, let me show you. invest contribution points. And what it should look like is, for example, if it's white or gray, that means it's not connected. And if it's red, that means it is connected. And when you have the node connected, you can put another node or connect another thing like this, for example, where it'll bring a certain material back to the town that you have a worker on. Now, the reason why it's important is because connecting nodes to various towns is, it used to give like discounts on trade stuff. I think they've like lightened up a little bit over the years, but overall, I have an entire node video of like how I set mine up, which you could watch that. It's kind of a long video, but it's like, if you want to see how I go about doing it, then you could. But anyway, so passive money over time, just setting up workers and nodes and get your whole like world connected in a way. So there's a lot more benefits of that as well. Even if it doesn't have a thing where it just brings back passive materials, you can have spots where you, like for example for me, have a node that's maxed out in level because it gives an item drop rate at the area that you're grinding. So just higher drop rate means higher chance of rare items, more money if you like the spot. That's also a reason. So getting those set up early on is a pretty big deal. And if the longer you wait, the slower it is and like the less money you'll have in the game. So I think it's something to work on early on instead of later. I know it might be confusing because like you have to get all these workers and everything and just like, oh, what do I pick? So what I would recommend nowadays in 2023, goblins are generally the best ones that people choose. So there's 3 options for the most part. The Kama Sylvia is a little bit different, but for the most part, there's 3 types of workers: goblins, humans, and giants. Humans give a balance of the amount they carry back with them, and the balance of time. Whereas giants, let's say, I'll just give some random numbers as an example. If you have a giant worker, let's say it'll carry 10 materials, but it'll take 1 hour, right? And then a human will carry like 5 materials, but it takes 30 minutes, right? And then a goblin is like 3 or 4 materials, but it takes like 15 minutes. Those are just random numbers. They are somehow balanced in a way, but generally, when you have faster like cycles, I do believe most people just go with goblins and set them up. But I have a lot of them just from like the years I've been playing. I've been very lazy. I just don't bother changing them. But overall, it is important to set up your nodes early on, and having them connected means you can get other ones. So like for example, if you wanted the orc camp, for example, right? You can't just pick the node. You have to connect it to another one, and you have to start from towns. So you see the little like yellow orange line? You have to connect all of these to get to the one you want to, and then that's how it works. So basically, for the most part, free money, higher item drop rate, and it's generally good. Next, we have multiple characters for life skills. Now, this one is an interesting topic because usually when most people play MMOs, you're just like, okay, I just want to play one main character and do everything on that. Now, that's understandable because I started this game the way like that as well. So all my life skills are basically on one character. Now, over the years, I've been sort of branching out on like spreading out various life skills on different ones, right? So, for example, I have sailing on this character, and then like more fishing and farming on another character. Now, the reason why you would do this is because let's say you are out in the middle of, I don't know, you're out in the middle of the desert grinding, right? But then your farms are set up in one of the towns, right? And suddenly you kind of have to make the long travel back, and you don't really want to do that because it's just wasting time. So having another character just be in the town to do it for you, and then you just swap back and forth, literally saves you hours of time. I guess throughout like the years you'll be playing, you'll save, trust me, a lot of time. So especially if you're doing ocean content, which is, well, in the ocean, And so you kind of want to have things spread out. It's not like there's no right or wrong way to play it, but I just think if you want to save time, you should spread out your life skills between multiple characters. I understand that people like having those icons above your head, like these things that tell you like you're in the top 5 or like something. So like, yeah, I understand there's rankings of everything and leaderboards, and then you kind of want to have all of them. But I think time is like the most important thing in this game, and doing things more or less efficiently. So yeah, another thing I guess we can add on to that is having multiple characters in general is always good, because they allow you to bypass like paid options from the Pearl Shop, which is like, you know how they have those Nadar's band where it allows you to stack fail stacks on one character? Having multiple characters allows you to just put the fail stacks on there for free, more or less. And although you have to swap characters, you don't have to pay like $10 per thing, which is always nice. And aside from, you know, making a new character to play it, that's like the #1 reason. Having different ones for seasonals as well, you could put all your characters at different bosses so you don't have to do all of them at once, is definitely one of the biggest thing. But generally, you know, if you want to play this game in the long run, you want to try out all the classes at least once. And like, I still have a main. This is my main character. Generally, if you watch a video, you'll see me on this one. But yeah, there's a lot of reasons to have multiple characters, but for life skills, that's extra important. So just make sure you spread out your workers and your life skills so your time is efficient. And trust me when I say, when you go back and forth throughout the world tens of thousands of times throughout the year, you start to wonder, how can I make this faster? And that's how. And our last thing I wanted to talk about for this video, I could probably make a part 2 actually, because I have a lot of things I could talk about, but I don't want to make like a 10-hour video, is having a decent horse early on. Now, as you guys know, in this game, there are limited ways of fast traveling, and with the Magnus, they made that a lot easier. So in most games, you know how they have like a teleport system from point A to B, very straightforward, standard stuff. And recently, in the past like 2 years, I believe, that's when Magnus came out, your ways of transportation is by horse. Nowadays, you still have to get around a lot of places by horse, but you use the well to transport from point A to B. However, with that said, you still need a horse to get from point A to B, because like the wells only drop you off at a certain point. And so having a horse, or a good horse, early on is definitely worth investing into. Now, I know people are like, oh, I need my silver to get better gear, but I don't want to spend it on a horse. So the way I look at it is, if you are saving time, that time can be used grinding another spot and making more money. So basically your return on investment is going to be a lot higher if you can get from point A to B faster. And if you use the well, which I do, a lot of people do, I think almost everyone does, it costs silver to get from point A to B. It is worth it, yes, but you just want to have the best horse you can. A lot of people ask me, when is the right time to get a dream horse? And that question is, or like the answer to that is, really when you think you need it. But if you have like a tier 8 horse that can drift, excel, and everything, it's just kind of like what that happened, it'll be at least good enough. So if you bought the game and you got like one of those higher tier packages, like the like collector's edition, I don't exactly know what they're called, like the Conqueror's one, whatever, where it's like instead of paying $5 for the game, you pay like 30 or something like that. In theory, it should give you like a tier 8 horse by start. Back when I started 7 years ago, the highest level or tier horse was tier 5, and that was like extra slow nowadays when I think about it. But nowadays, I think the default is like a tier 8, and that's the highest like good one for a newer player. And then once you start going into the tier 9s and 10 horses, that's when things start becoming a huge investment, which I think they are worth it, but it's just not something I think a beginner should worry about early on. And so, yeah, getting a good horse to get you from point A to B faster is generally pretty good. How you can go about doing that, I do have a few videos on basically everything we talked about in terms of like how to level up your horse, how to get the right skills and everything, the reasoning for everything. I think that if you are interested, I have like more detailed videos and everything, but these are just 5 tips that I still believe are relevant in this game to this day, and hopefully they help you out. So with that said, I think that's it for me today. Thanks so much for watching. I might do a part 2 because there's just a lot of information in this game that I would love to share with all of you, and the videos would just be hours long, and we don't want that because I have to actually write things down as well. So with that said, if you enjoyed it, drop a quick like on the video. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments, join the Discord, all that good stuff. Happy to help you guys, especially newer and returning players or people just who like getting better at this game. Happy to help. So with that said, thanks so much for watching. I will see you tomorrow. Peace.